and welcome to my craft room. I'm Leo from inkymemories.co.uk, an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in South Wales. And today on this simple Saturday stamping project, we're going to be making some thank you cards. As it is getting towards the end of the month, it's time for me to get my thank you cards ready for everyone that has shopped with me this month. So these are the products that we're going to be using today. I'm using the Banner Year bundle. So this is a stamp and punch bundle that can be found in your August to December catalogue on page 65. And I'm going to be pairing this with the Classic Christmas Designer Series paper that is part of the pre-released Quite Curvy Variety bundle. Now this Designer Series paper is really lovely. It does come in slightly festive colours, so you've got red and green and then a nice neutral sort of beige, which is actually Sahara Sand in here. But a lot of the designs are not necessarily Christmassy, and I wanted to show you that you can use this for more than just Christmas cards. So let's get started. As this is a simple Saturday project, I do have all of my pieces pre-cut and ready to go, so I've got those here. And we have a card base in Cherry Cobbler. As always with my card bases, this is a half sheet of standard A4. So this is 14.85 centimetres by 21, and I've scored this up the middle at 10.5. I also have a Whisper White envelope. I have a piece of that Designer Series paper. So this is what I wanted to show you. Obviously this side is sort of slightly festive. This is, I think, mistletoe branches and berries. But then on this side you just have this gorgeous scattering of stars, not necessarily Christmassy. So this is the paper I'm going to be using today. And this measures 14.35 centimetres by 10. I also then have a matte in white for the inside of my card, and this is 13.35 by 9. I have a matte for the front of my card, and this is 8 centimetres squared. And then I have two strips of cardstock, so one in Cherry Cobbler and one in Sahara Sand, and these are 1.9 centimetres and 1.3 centimetres. Again, these are scrap strips. I'm going to be trimming them down with the punch. So let us get started with a little bit of stamping. I'm going to need my front mat, my inner mat, and my envelope. And we're going to be using inks that coordinate today, so I have Cherry Cobbler and Sahara Sand inks. And the stamps that I've chosen from the stamp set, I've gone with a grateful heart as my sentiment. And for an accent piece, I'm using this little envelope with a heart on it, which I think is utterly gorgeous. So I'm going to take that little envelope stamp first of all, and the Sahara Sand ink. So here is my stamp ready mounted onto my block, and I'm going to use my small sentiment piece here in Sahara Sand. Ink up my stamp, so just some nice light taps over the surface of the ink pad just to get that nicely inked up. And then I'm just going to stamp this all the way over the background of this piece of Sahara Sand cardstock. So rotating the stamp, filling all of those gaps on the front. Just making sure that we've got a nice even coverage of the stamp there. Just like so. And then I'm going to use the same stamp on my inner mat and on my envelope, but I'm going to switch over to Cherry Cobbler for this. So I'm going to close this one up and grab in my Cherry Cobbler ink. Don't worry about cleaning off your stamp. If you're using quite a pale colour and you're going to a darker colour, you can just ink up over the top and it's not going to do any damage to your ink pad, so it helps to save you some time. So I'm just going to pop this down in the corner on my envelope like so. And then again on the inside of my card, on the card mat, I'm just going to pop a little envelope down on there as well. Just like so. And then the last thing that I need to do stamping wise is to stamp my sentiment. So I have that mounted here with a grateful heart, and I'm going to stamp this onto my piece of Sahara Sand. But first of all, I'm going to punch one end so it's ready for me to trim up. So for the stamped sentiment, I'm going to be using this end here. I'm just going to feed in my cardstock and then punch, and then ink up my stamp. Now the reason that I punch this first is it allows me to try and get the stamp where I want it to be in relation to the sort of punched end. So now that I know where that is, it makes it much easier for me to then stamp my sentiment into the right place. So this strip is just wide enough for this stamp, so take a moment to get this positioned. Make sure you've got it nice and straight, and then push straight down and lift straight back up. And there is our sentiment all nicely stamped on there. Now what I want to do is just make sure that I trim this to the right length before I punch the other end so that my sentiment is nicely centered. And if you've seen any of my previous videos using these punches, you might have seen this already, but all I've done is keep the sort of waist piece that I've punched from this end, and I'm going to use that as a sort of template to make sure that I get the same gap on this side of my sentiment as I have over here. So if I pull that back, so I've got roughly the same width at either end, and then just taking a pair of regular scissors, I'm going to snip up the edge of that little sort of template piece. And then when I punch this, it should end up nicely centered around my sentiment. So with this, since it is a little bit short now, you may want to turn your punch over and just make sure that you've got your piece of cardstock centered over the end of the punch. And there is my punched sentiment piece ready to go. And I'm also going to punch my piece of cherry cobbler, and I'm going to do this on the chevron end this time. So again, feeding this in and punch. And I'm going to take my little piece that I've just cut and measure this to see roughly where I want this to sit. And again, you can always use your little waist piece to make sure that you've got the same gap on either end. And just with your scissors, just trim straight up the edge and punch that again. And there is my background piece for my sentiment. So I'll sit just nicely over the end of there. And now it's time to assemble my cards. I'm going to bring back in all of my pieces. Let's start first of all by getting the base ready. So if I grab my bone folder here, I'm just going to fold my card base along that score line and burnish with my bone folder. And then grabbing some liquid glue, I shall first of all get my inner mat stuck inside my card. Now you can, of course, if you want to, add a sentiment to the inside of your card. I tend to leave a lot of my cards blank on the inside so that I can write my own message. But if there's a sentiment that particularly calls to you, or the type of card that you're making, absolutely grab that and stamp it on the inner mat. And this is the lovely thing about crafting. You're in control. You can decide what you put where. So just smooth that into place and give it a moment for the glue to bond. That's our inner mat in there. And then I'm going to pop on my DSP. So again, I'm just taking a nice thin bead of glue right around the edge. Not too close. With liquid glue, you don't want it to sort of squeeze out of the edges once you put it into place. I put a piece down the middle just to help it stick firmly. And then line this up onto the front of my card. As always, when you're using liquid glue, you do get a few seconds just to wiggle this around. So if it doesn't land quite right when you first pop it down, do give it a wiggle, move it into the right place. Okay, so that's my card base pretty much ready to go. So let's get this part done. I'm going to use some ribbon, well, twine on this. I've got here this lovely gold twine, and this is from the Wonderful Year ribbon combo pack. Again, this is in your August to December catalogue. It comes as a 2-pack with a lovely, this gorgeous ribbon here. This is in shaded spruce. It's nice wide soft ribbon that has this stitching detail on it, and there are combo packs, they come together, so really lovely ribbons on there. I'm just going to use the thin gold twine today to tie a nice bow around the front of my card. So let's get this tied and ready. Okay, there we go. It's a reasonable bow first time. I'm pretty proud of that one. Just gonna shimmy the loops and tails ever so slightly so it's a little bit smaller. And move it ever so slightly over to the side as well. And then just trim this down a little. Okay, that is our twine on. So next I'm going to pop on my piece in Cherry Cobbler. I'm going to put this on with dimensionals, but I want to make sure that I don't end up with dimensionals over the top of the ribbon. It can, if you sort of stick a dimensional over a ribbon, it can sort of rock on the surface. So what I'm going to do is use some of the edge pieces along the sides of my dimensionals here. So I'm just going to snip some of this down. And I would always advocate for doing this, you know, make sure you use all of your packs of dimensionals. This sort of edge piece that isn't cut is just as good as the middle. It's all made out of the same material, it just isn't pre-snipped for you. So do make sure that you use it, get the most out of your crafty supplies. So by using these, as you can see, they're a little bit thinner than the actual pre-cut dimensionals. So it's going to allow me that channel down the middle for my twine to sit into. Okay, last piece going on there. And I've tried not to put this too close to the edge. We don't want it to sort of peek out of the sides of the cardstock once it's on the front of the card. So I'm just going to pop off all of the backing paper on these pieces of dimensional. And then making sure that my twine is in the center of my little piece of card here. I'm going to take my piece in Cherry Cobbler, center it side to side across the front of this little mat and pop that into place. So now you can see that the twine goes through the center and isn't sat under any of those dimensional pieces. And then with the little sentiment, I'm actually just going to pop this over the top with some liquid glue. Just a little tiny bead of glue across the back. And then pop this into the center of this piece. Just like that. And then I'm going to put this whole mat onto the front of my card with some dimensionals. So just pop these over the back. And I'm going to add just one more to the center just for a little bit of added stability. And again, just peel off the backs of these. I'm going to mount this onto the front of my card more towards the top. So making sure that I've got a nice even border side to side and across the top. Pop that into place on the front of my card. Now the last thing that I'm going to add to this card is a little bit of bling in the form of these wonderful gems. So these are also from the, I believe it's called the Wonderful Year Suite in the August to December catalogue, and they come in two colours. So if I hold these up, you should be able to hopefully see them. So you've got this red version and a clear version, and they both have this lovely fine gold holographic glitter encased in them, and the surface is actually faceted as well. It is cut in lots of little square facets over there. So these are really lovely little gems, and I really enjoy using these on a lot of different projects. Again, these are from a Christmas suite, but you don't necessarily have to use Christmas products for Christmas cards. There are lots of other occasions that these products would work for as well. Again, to sort of make your crafty supplies go that little bit further, you know, stretch into different seasons and different occasions. So I'm just using my take a pick tool here to lift up these little gems. I find this makes it a lot easier to help me position them onto the front of my card and also get them off the piece of backing paper as well. And I'm just putting 3 gems across the surface of my card, just like so, just to add that little bit of extra bling. And there is my finished card for today. So a nice simple one, using the Banner Year bundle and some products that are technically Christmassy but don't necessarily have to be for Christmas cards. I have made an alternate version as well, as always, so just using one of the other designs of paper in the stack. So this one is this really nice sort of lattice design, and again, you know, it's from a festive stack of paper but not necessarily Christmassy, and can definitely be used for other occasions. So thank you so much for joining me in my craft room today. I do hope that you have enjoyed this project. If you have, please do give the video a like and consider subscribing to the channel. That will mean that you get notified every time I post a new video and you won't miss any of my projects going forwards. If you're based in the UK and you don't currently have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and you'd like a copy of our current catalogues, there'll be a link in the description box below for you to the web form on my website where you can request that. And next month I'll actually be starting to mail out the January to June catalogues. The brand new catalogues will be coming out, so if you'd like to get in on that mailing list, pop me a message on that web form and I'll be happy to get those out into the post for you. If you would like to purchase any of the products that I've used in this project today, they're all available through my store with Stampin' Up, and there will be a link in the description box below for you to go directly to my store so you can purchase any of those and give this a go for yourself. If you have any questions or comments about any of the products that I've used today or about Stampin' Up in general, please do pop them below. I'd be happy to help you out. Thank you again for joining me today, and I hope to see you in my craft room again very soon. Bye bye.